Arizona faces a staunch test, the biggest yet in Big 12 play, in the Sunshine State, a long ways away. Don't fall for the trap.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the number one sports podcast network around. I'm your host, Leif Thulin, your resident college basketball guru, stats nerd, point guard by game, and ball knower by trade. And I'm excited, as always, to talk Arizona hoops with you today. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here. It's alive and well, and FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost every single game day. Today on the show, I'll preview and familiarize you guys with UCF, Arizona's next opponent, what they bring to the table, give keys to the game with key stats that will lead to an Arizona victory, and of course, give my feel for the game and my score prediction. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Well, Arizona didn't play its best against ASU, but emerged unscathed, winning by 7, and got a monstrous effort from Koa Peat, particularly in the second half, and Tobe Awaka was awesome. They combined for 49 points, and that was while Bradley, Burries, and Mo Krivas all struggled relative to their illustrious standard. This team is deep, and anyone can thrive on any given night. And I'm not saying that, like, hey, it's going to be this person's night, and it's going to be a rotating chairs. The reason I bring that up is it's very infrequent that 3 players out of the best 5 on the team, 3 starters, all have bad nights. And when it did happen, and the other team hit a ton of shots that were probably outside the norm, that will happen. A lot of mid-range jump shots went down. They hit 11 threes. And Arizona still won and scored 89 points with 3 of their 5 starters struggling, and the other team played very, very well. So it speaks to me about there's very little need to worry about playing a close game. The other team played well. Arizona didn't play their best and still was able to hit a level where they hit 13 they scored in 11 straight possessions, and for 13 minutes were basically not denied in consecutive fashion for the second half. Speaking of the second half, I mentioned Koa Peat. Many people were worried about Koa Peat. He was taking a backseat to other players, and he wasn't playing particularly aggressive. I mentioned I'm kind of thinking he's going to be really good in Big 12 play, and when he needs it, he's got it. So right now, to dispel those worries, in Big 12 play, he's averaging 19 points, 7.3 boards, 3.3 assists on very, very good efficiency. To me, and now proven by Evan Mia, he's a stats whiz. I don't know exactly how he goes through his algorithm, but he has computed that Arizona is the most consistent team in the nation. As in comparison with Michigan, Michigan's third worst in consistency, and I believe this is among some of the better teams, and most volatile for the top 25. Michigan at its best is great, but it has more warts, and they are more beatable on a day-to-day basis than Arizona, according to his formula. Arizona had an off game for them against ASU and survived. Now, how does that factor into UCF? UCF will try to coax another bad game out of Arizona, but a bad game included Arizona scoring 89 points on 50% shooting. If they score 89 on 50% shooting, they're probably going to win this one too. That's how sustainably this team scores, and the defense will be better too, and it's unlikely, even though UCF is a very good offensive team, that they'll hit 11 threes on this unbelievable Arizona defense. So what can UCF do to scare Arizona? Why are they a scary matchup? So I'll give 2 reasons. One, it's a far travel. Like I mentioned this at the very beginning of the season, that this is a matchup that scared me, not because of who UCF had. And UCF is actually pretty solid. They're 14-2 with wins over Kansas and Cincy and K-State in Big 12 play. And one of their 2 losses is to Vanderbilt, who up until yesterday was undefeated. And the point I'm trying to make is geography matters. We talk about hostile environments, Kansas being a great example. You go into Kansas, it's really hard to get a win at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. You go into Ames, Iowa, to Hilton, it's hard to get a win. But the proximity isn't the worst. Now you go all the way from Arizona to Florida, and you play a 2 p.m. game Mountain Time. That's not the easiest. I don't think it'll really impact Arizona. I think they've got this stuff figured out. But I want to make that point early. And the other part is UCF is a good offensive team. good offensive teams, I think, are actually fine for Arizona. I think a good offense and not a great defense is actually a recipe that's better for Arizona than playing a great defense and a not great offense, because Arizona's going to score on UCF. And Arizona's defense is good enough to stop good offenses and at least make them work extremely hard for theirs, and Arizona will score more reproducibly. For record, UCF is 41st on offense and 68th on defense per KenPom. But let's put real numbers to this too. They score 86 per game and they concede 75, so pretty good. But they do so at the slow tempo, so their efficiency is actually pretty impressive. Where they thrive, though, much like Arizona, is on the offensive glass. So when they miss, they get second chances. Therefore, their efficiency is still very good. And they also don't turn it over very often, so that is a good way to win the possession war. They rebound 38% of their misses, which is 18th in the nation. Arizona's top 5 in the nation with 41%. And they shoot 38% from 3 and 55% from 2. Those are very good marks. Those are very, very good. I think Arizona will make those numbers lower. I'd imagine Arizona holds them to sub 38% from 3. And my guess is like 45% from 2. Arizona concedes 43% from 2. You meet in the middle. I think it'll be closer to the Arizona side. They play slowly, speaking of UCF. So there's not going to be a ton of shots, but they make a lot. And when they miss, they get their own misses. That sounds similar to Arizona, except Arizona plays more quickly. A difference between the two sides is UCF does not go to the free throw line much, which means they rely on hard shots. They're not as good at getting as close to the basket as a team like Arizona, which puts rim pressure and foul pressure on, like Tommy Lloyd told me at when I interviewed him at Utah. ASU made a ton of hard shots. Masamba Diop hit 6 mid-ranges on his own. Mo Odoms hit some very difficult shots from 3 and floaters to stay alive in this game. So it is possible to hit hard shots that Arizona coaxes you into taking. But it's hard. It's unsustainable. And Arizona shoots very sustainable offensive shots from point-blank range. Defensively, UCF rebounds well, conceding just 27% of their misses. And Arizona will be sharp on the glass. They'll have to be to win this game. And UCF doesn't force turnovers with steals, so that isn't a huge risk for Arizona. But they're not. And the other part that I think is more actually of a death sentence for most teams is if you're not great at protecting the rim. But they are better at protecting the rim than ASU, and I thought ASU did a better job than the statistics would have indicated. So who are the guys for this team? Like that's their overview. But who are the dudes that stand out? They have an egalitarian attack. That's very good. They have 4 players scoring over 4 players scoring over 12 per game. And one of them is a journeyman whom I adored his freshman year. And he's been disappointing, but he's starting to round into form. That's Riley Kugel, who the last 9 games of his freshman season at Florida, Colin Castleton got hurt, and he scored 21 per game. And I was doing NBA draft coverage for Locked On at the time, and I was like, this guy's a top 20 pick. I just happened to watch his very first game as the guy in those final 9 games of the season. He then transferred to Mississippi State after a failed transfer to Kansas, and now he's at UCF. And he's scoring 15 per game, shooting 40% from 3, and has dynamic athleticism. I expect Yvonne to guard him, and I expect Yvonne to win that matchup. But that's a real dude. Like these are not slouches. The next guy who I think is the guy who stirs the drink would be Themus Fulks. He's an interesting player. He's a senior, and most of their team is guys that are journeymen that didn't work in their first stop, maybe not their second, and now they're finding a home in their third or fourth stops. Well, he's a 6'1" guard, scoring 13 points, dishing out 7 assists per game. And he's the head of the snake. And at his 4th school in 4 years, I believe it's South Carolina State, Louisiana, Milwaukee, and now starring at UCF. That's a very fun story. That story doesn't usually end well when playing Jaden Bradley. There's a reason that Jaden Bradley is so hard to play against. PJ Haggerty struggled. Mo Odom struggled. Donovan Dent struggled. You look at these guys, he makes you guard, and he guards you. The other thing is Fulks has hit 50% of his threes. Unlikely to persist. And UCF has sizable wings, so they do not cede a ton of size, but they're not thick. They're slender wings for the most part. They also have a 7'2" big on the interior, but he's extremely thin. Stillwell would be their next best player that I would point out. He's 6'8", scores 12 points, 8 boards. And Jordan Burks, is a junior who wears number 99, so he'll stick out. But what's interesting is he was at Georgetown last year. And for those of you who are recruiting sickos like me, you're like, man, I've heard that name. He was at Kentucky where he committed. So he's in his 3rd year and his 3rd school. And he's really emblematic of what UCF is. They have a lot of guys with talent, but have been journeymen, and now they're coalescing nicely, but there's different levels to basketball. And I think Arizona teaches them the weight classes of like, there's a reason that these guys, we have a couple one and dones. There's a reason that Arizona has the record they do because they've got guys who can do different things. These guys are good at things, but they've been featured in different spots, and now we're trying to play roles. And I wonder if there's just a difference in terms of how well the ball will be shared in this game. They're old, they're skilled, they shoot the ball well without conceding a ton of size. I was impressed when I watched them play Kansas. They're not one-dimensional in how they score or who scores, and they'll be hard to play for a totally different reason than TCU was, who's toughness based. UCF is, you don't know who's going to beat you or be the guy to take you on, and they've got a lot of long athletic dudes. This is a team who's going to try to space Arizona out and score individually, mano a mano, and have a good pick and roll point guard in Fulks. But I think they've got answers to drop coverage in a way, but I do think there's going to be something said for they haven't played a team with Mo Krivas. They haven't played a team with Tobe Awaka who can switch, and Mo can play drop. I do think Fulks is going to have a, oh, shoot, like this is real moment, and you don't want your point guard having that. The biggest key to me is how much Arizona imposes their will at the cup against a capable shooting team that has decent size. Arizona's going to need to score a lot of easy twos and make UCF's less easy, more tricky. UCF is good. Arizona's better. Next up, the keys to an Arizona win. All that and more on Locked On Wildcats. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get on the action every single game day of the playoffs, because right now, every college football playoff game day, FanDuel users get profit boosts waiting for them in the app. And here's what I love about it. You can use the profit boost on bets you already feel good about, ride with the favorite when you think a team controls the matchup, and take a shot on the underdog if you feel an upset coming. Then you apply the profit boost and go after even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get on the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost every game day. Welcome back to Locked On Wildcats. Thank you guys for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day, so now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Wildcats with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonwildcats.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. Leif Thulin with you here, and here are the keys to an Arizona victory. Arizona has more horses than do the UCF Knights. But this is not a punchless squad. These are not just plucky underdogs. They've got some dudes. So I think this could be a game where scoring more than the other, as opposed to locking down a team, becomes a factor. Like, who scores more simple and easy and repeatable points? And that is the way Arizona wins. I've said this 1,000 times. This team scores 58% of their points from two, and they get a lot of high-quality twos. And when they do happen to miss, they get 41% of their misses. So there's very few teams that can reproducibly score as many points as Arizona can. Arizona, in my opinion, had an off day for all but like 10 minutes to start the second half against Arizona State and scored 89 points. They had three starters that combined for 40-plus points to score 22. We'll get to that in a moment. But my point being is they're hard to beat, even on off days. I think they rebound and play better. So here are the keys that I see leading to an Arizona win. And these teams are both top 20 in offensive glass and in percentage of rebounding, right? So Arizona gets more rebounds. They play a little faster pace. But in terms of percentages of offensive rebounding, they're both top 20. UCF is not quite as elite as Arizona on the offensive glass, and they're not quite on the same caliber defensively, but they're still quite good. But where this game could be decided to me is if Arizona wins the glass by 7-10, because they've won the glass every single game. They're the only team in the nation who's done that. I think they'll do so all season long because they score a ton of easy shots, and therefore there's not many defensive rebounds to go for the other team. So my guess is Arizona gets around 40 rebounds based on the pace. UCF plays about 69 possessions per game, and Arizona plays a little north of 74. So I think a good number would be 40 boards to 32 in favor of Arizona. So a +8. Like, I think that would be a very good indicator for Arizona. If it's anything beyond that, they should win absolutely. The next key would be Arizona's excellent at limiting teams from three. And they recently surrendered an outlier performance from ASU, who hit 11 threes. And kudos to ASU. They hit hard shots. A couple of their players stepped up and made more threes than their average. But Arizona doesn't usually give up 11 threes. Usually it's under 7. UCF hits 39% of their threes, but they're bashful. They only hit 8.5 per game, and that's only 29% of their total offense. So that's an impressive percentage, but they don't shoot a ton of them. Arizona is going to make you shoot more than you're used to, but I feel like they're going to shoot worse shots. So don't let them get hot from deep is the simple key. Don't let them exceed the 29% of their total output being from three, because they're good at shooting twos, hitting 55% from two on the season. That will diminish. I would be astounded if they shoot 55% from two against Arizona. Due to Krivas and Awaka and Peat, the size collectively of Arizona makes it very hard to shoot a good percentage from two. Arizona holds teams to 43% from two, and I think they'll be closer to 43 than 55 in terms of 2-point percentage. We'll track that. ASU made a ton of hard twos. It's really hard to score efficiently for prolonged periods against an Arizona team. So I expect the 2-point percentage to dip, and thus that leads to Arizona needing to limit an excess of threes being attempted. So my goal would be 7 or fewer threes conceded by Arizona. The next one, you guys know me, I created my own stat. It's called paint-oriented points. If you're just listening, that is points in the paint plus free throws made. Arizona scores about 70 points in the paint plus free throws made. That is based on they score 58% of their points from two and 21% from the free throw line. That's 79% of 92 points per game, and that gets you about 72. So let's just say it's 70 points, paint-oriented points. I think that's going to dip in conference play because there's better athletes that make it harder to get as good a position. But Arizona scores 65 plus in this one. They're awfully hard to beat. And in any game, they're going to be awfully hard to beat for UCF if Arizona scores 65 paint-oriented points or more. And that's the goal right here. I think that should happen. For reference, Arizona had a poor first half, and they were only a plus a little bit in the points in the paint. And they ended up making 21 free throws and 46 points in the paint. That's 67 right there. I bet they'll be higher than that in this game because UCF is a team that is better offensively than defensively. ASU, there's rivalry. They played a different style. I think there's some extenuating circumstances that led to a lesser performance from Arizona for the first half. Anyway, the last key to me is Arizona did not turn over the rock much against ASU, but they also didn't turn ASU over. They were not great in that department. UCF does not force many turnovers, but they also only turn it over 16% of their possessions, which is actually very good. That may seem high, but that's very good. So who can win the turnover battle? And let's expand here and say, I want to see Arizona win the points off of turnovers. So they force live ball turnovers, and I want to see them win the points off of turnovers by 7 and reach 15 points off of turnovers. So 15-8, something like that. And that would be a really good sign because it makes the other team score in the half court against a vaunted defense. To extend this thought further, let's relate this back to possessions. And that's how you win in college basketball. You want to win the offensive glass, and you want to get more uncontested shots via turning the other team over so they don't shoot, and then you run out and score. They don't shoot means they had a lesser possession, fewer chances to score. That's the key part. Now, if you can turn their turnover into points on the other end, you very, very infrequently lose. Very rarely does the team who dominates in that statistic, unless they are a lesser team, they rarely lose. So ideally, I want to see 12 plus second chance points for Arizona, 15 points off of turnovers, and 10 fast break points. And that, to me, is a sign for success. And I also think a simple one, just win the turnover battle. Win the margin of who has fewer turnovers, therefore the team that took care of the ball better. If these happen, I expect Arizona to win by 10 or so. The spread in my estimation, it's not out yet, but in my estimation, at least when I'm recording this, the spread's going to be like 8. I think Arizona covers the spread and wins by 10 or so if these things happen. If only some of them happen, it could get a little dicier. If very few of them happen, It could be an upset watch. UCF's got some horses. It's a road game in a tricky environment. Coming up next, I'll outline exactly what I foresee. I've given some good thought, give you my score prediction, and who's going to star. All that and more next on Locked On Wildcats. Welcome back to Locked On Wildcats. Leif Thulin with you here. What I see coming is I expect Arizona to be more sharp defensively in this game and make life hard for Fulks, who's been great for UCF. But the ball pressure Arizona can do. They touch in the gaps, they pressure, they have size that contest shots, they make you shoot hard shots near the rim. And with ball pressure comes turnovers. And if the head of the snake, who's been guarded by Jaden Bradley, they've struggled. Like I said, Haggerty, Dent, Odom, those guys have struggled. If he struggles, I expect Arizona to pull away. I expect Arizona to win the point guard battle because Bradley, for his illustrious standard, had a lackluster game in his previous outing. I expect him to be good defensively and make life difficult for UCF. And the question for UCF will be, can they hit a lot of threes without as much ball movement generated by having advantages? Teams don't get advantages as easily against Arizona, and that's why they don't get as easy of looks, because the ball's not swinging around with the Arizona chasing. You're just dancing around with Arizona compact and making you shoot tough shots. So if those advantages gained by Fulks in the pick and roll and the speed of that team overall in isolation, if those advantages are mitigated by Arizona's size, I think it's tough sledding for UCF. And I expect that, especially at the head of the snake, Bradley defending Fulks. I think Bradley, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, Bradley, Burries, and Krivas all had poor games. Bradley went 6 of 15 from the field, had only 12 points. So he shot 3 more shots than he had points. Burries shot 1 more shot than he had points, and he only had 6 points. Krivas had 4 points and struggled in this game. That's only 22 points scored by a trio that scores about 40 per game. And that triumvirate scores around 39 per game, if I'm doing my math. Yeah, 39 per game. I expect them to exceed their average and greatly exceed what they put forth in a game where they still scored 89 points in ASU. So I think they'll score 45 points. I think Bradley, Burries, and Krivas combine for 45 points. If that happens, Arizona is very difficult to beat because you still got Koa Peat, you got Tobe Awaka, and other guys who can step up because they got the best 8 in America. They combined for 22 last time. I expect them to double it. I still see Peat staying aggressive and scoring 20 again. I think that's going to be very, very common in Big 12 play. When Arizona needs it, teams have the horses to score against Arizona. You'll see Peat score 20. When they can't score in Arizona, I think you'll see lesser numbers for Peat, but still high efficiency. I see Peat scoring 20. I think Bradley scores around 15. I wouldn't be surprised if Burries has a good game because he's had 2 clunkers after 10 straight great ones where he's scoring 19 a game. But let's just think about that for a minute. 2 clunkers from a guy who was entering those 2 games, scoring 15 per game and 19 per game in the previous 10. And Arizona's not impacted by that. They win 89-82, scoring 89 points against a good, I wouldn't say ASU's good. Actually, I'll rephrase it. Against a team that played exceedingly well and extremely motivated. And then a good TCU team who's very good defensively. Burries struggles, and Arizona scores 86 and leads for most of the game by double digits. Most teams can't afford for a guy who's an all-conference caliber player scoring 19 per game in the previous 10 games to score 12 points combined in 2 games and 2 tough games. They can't afford for their all-American point guard to have a bad game offensively and still score 89. Arizona's different than everyone else. That's why they're consistent, because they have 7 guys who've scored 20 points, and the 8th has scored 18. And it wasn't in garbage time. These guys have done it in the big-time moments. And Arizona didn't hit many threes last game. They didn't need to. I see that continuing. An emphasis was put on getting to the rim early in that second half, and they scored on 13 straight possessions. 11 straight possessions. And I think that allows for guys like Del Orso and Burries to hit some open threes because the emphasis of getting to the rim draws extra eyes, draws extra bodies. And yeah, maybe UCF will be like, okay, shoot that shot, wave and dare you to shoot. You hit it, and all of a sudden this game is really difficult because if Arizona hits a couple threes, it gets to too high a number for UCF, who's very good offensively and scores 86 a game themselves, to shoot well enough against Mo Krivas down low in the paint. Because Arizona's going to shoot just about 50% at a minimum from 2. They had a couple threes into that. Of course, free throws too. You're looking at a team that can score 100 with ease. And you're not going to score 100 against a team that gives up 90 per 100 possessions. And UCF has 69 possessions per game. Well, take away 31 possessions, and this team then probably only gives up 70. Like if there's 69 possessions, they're giving up like 67 points. So you're not going to outscore Arizona if they start hitting threes. Arizona's going to attack the rack and set up the three-pointer. Watch that. It's going to happen. I see Arizona on average shooting well from two, and the average efficiency from two for Arizona is like 58. I think they shoot 52, 53. UCF, on the other hand, scores 55%, shoots 55% from two. I see that dropping to 40 to 45, and that saps their chances enormously. They have to maintain a high level of making twos to have a chance. Otherwise, they're going to live and die by the three, like K-State did, and you're going to die by the three against Arizona. So what I see is Arizona scoring in the upper 80s. They just scores too sustainably. They have players that are due for rebounds, and I just think UCF plays into the hands of what Arizona does well. Yes, they rebound well. They mitigate a little bit of Arizona's interior advantage. But I do think the way they play offense plays into what Arizona can take away. So I see UCF scoring the mid-70s. Arizona, I'll go by 10 points. I think UCF keeps it close enough, but Arizona is in front from wire to wire. I'll go 86-76, Arizona by 10. If you guys want, I don't know if the line is out, but I'll check Ken Palm for you, who will always have a projection. And, that's a strange one. Ken Palm has 85-76. So Ken Palm and I are off by 1 point. I got Arizona winning by 10. He's got them winning by 9. So strangely enough, very, very close. We will see. Maybe Ken Palm and I are onto something. You guys let me know your prediction in the comments. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Wildcats. Today, tomorrow on Saturday, I'll have a postcast late at night, late in the afternoon, actually, for this game. So hope you guys tune in there. We'll break down what happened in the UCF game. And then once the weekend finishes, I'll break down the game and what's ahead in Big 12 play as Arizona gets into the thick of it, hopefully still undefeated. So make sure you subscribe, follow Locked On Wildcats so you get all the latest episodes, and follow me on Twitter so you can interact with me there. Love to talk to you there. It's just my name, Leif Thulin. So if Locked On Wildcats made your Spotify Wrapped, let us know. Prove it on social media, and you'll get a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform, and we'll drop you a code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club and get your favorite show ad-free and exclusive access to members-only Discord channel and more, where you get to interact with me. For those of you on YouTube, we send you the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And if you're on audio, make sure you make your second listen, Locked On College Football, and get you prepped for the championship. Thanks for tuning in, and bear down.